करने जगह पाऊंगी तो ऐसे पूजा करने से बड़ा अच्छा कल शाम को रात में रेस्ट ऐसे You want to take medicine first? Samsara nalalidaloka tanaya kanaganatyam praptasya kalyana gunanamasi vande guru shri charanam महाप्रभु की तननृत्य गीत वादित नाट्यं मनसोरसेन रोमाञ्चकं श्रुतरङ्गभाजो वन्दे गुरोः श्री चरणारविन्दम् Shri Vigrahara Gunanitya Nana Shringaratannam Nirmarjanadao Yukatasya Bhakta Chanayam Yatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasadu Swadhana Triptan Hari Bhakta Sanghan Katavaiva Triptim Bhajata Sadaiva Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Shri Radhikama Bhavayora Paru Madhurya Lila Gunadupanamana Pratikshana Swa Durgolupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Nikunjayono Ratikeli Siddhai Jayali Virayo Tirapekshaniya Tatrati Daksha Ativallabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Sakshad Haritvena Samhita Shastra Ukatastha Thabha Vyataiva Sadhi Kintu Prabhoreyaha Priya eva tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Yasya prasadat Bhagavat prasado Yasya prasadan Nagati kutopi Yasya prasadat Bhagavat prasado Yasya prasadan Nagati kutopi Dhyayam stuvam stasya Yashastri sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Dhyayam stuvam stasya Yashastri sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Jai Jai Prabhupada 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada Jai Jai Prabhupada 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada.
One song.
Okay. Sansarava Nalalidhaloka Tanaya Karunya Anaganatum Praptasya Kalyana Gunanamasya Vande Shri Charanarvindam Mahaprabhu ki Karunatya Gita Vanitavadya Manasura Sena Romanchakam Shrutarangabhajo Vande Guroho Shri Charanarvindam Shri Vigrahara Dhananityanana Shingaratan Dhiramarjanado Yukatasya Bhaktam Chanayanyatopi Vande Guroho Shri Charanarvindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasado Swadhyayam Haribhakta Sanghan Katavaiva Triptim Bhajata Sadaiva Vande Guroho Shri Charanarvindam Shri Radhikama Dhavayorapado Madhurya Leela Gunarupanam Pratikshana Swa Dhanalolupasya Vande Guroho Shri Charanarvindam Nikunjayona Ratikeji Sithe Yayadivirayo Thirapekshaniya Tatrapidakshya Ativallabhasya Vande Guroho Shri Charanarvindam Sakshat Haritvena Samasta Shastre Uktastatha Yateva Saddhi Kintu Prabhaya Priya eva tasya Vande Guroho Shri Charanarvindam Yasya prasadat Bhagavat prasado Yasya prasadan Nagati kutokti Dhyam stuvam stasya Yashaste sandhyam Vande Guroho Shri Charanarvindam Jai Jai Prabhupada 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada Nasing Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Dishatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namaste Nara Simhaya Prahalad Prahaladayine Hiranyakashipu Vakshaha Shilakantanakalaye Eko Narasimha Bharato Nisimha Yato Yato Yamitato Narasimha Avira Narasimha Hridaye Narasimha Narasimhamadem Sharanam Prapate Bhava 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 Adaputta Shringa Lalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringa Keshavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Lakshmi Narasimha Jai Bhakta Prahalad Lakshmi Narasimha Jai Bhakta Prahalad Jai Jai Prabhupada 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada Shri Shri Lakshmi Narasimha Devi Bhavan जी कृष्ण प्रिया आगे कौन लगा तुलसी श्री कृष्ण सेवा Vilas Kujedio Nayana Kiriyo Sada Jugalar Parashi Edanataro Sakira Nogata Koro Shivati Karadiye Koro Nijadashi Dina Krishna Dasi Ko Yegina Morato Shraddha Okay, Puja,
Tani tani pranashanti Tani brahma pari tani cha Tani tani pranashanti Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Shita Shimharangi Vrindadevi. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare
परसों तो जान नहीं पाया था, मतलब क्या किया था सर, नहीं आप कैसे गए थे वहाँ तरफ से जाइए। क्या बोला
Как махать? Как?
Ну,
Видишь, у нас какая-то решение. Андрей, как? Есть?
दिन में रेस्ट करना चाहिए आपको, रेस्ट करते हैं, कल तो रेस्ट नहीं करें। रेस्ट से होता है ना, रात में अच्छा रेस्ट नहीं हो पाता है, रेस्ट से सब कुछ होता है। हाँ, तो दिन में अगर कर लेते तो थोड़ा बैलेंसिंग बन जाता है। रात में तो फंसते हैं करते हैं।
Wo ist er denn?
Okay.
शुद्धाय कृष्ण भूतले श्रीमते गोपाल कृष्ण प्रभुपाद से साहित्य प्रजान विद्वान साधु भागवत
एक्चुअली क्या है, उन्होंने पहले आपको स्टेरॉइड्स दे रहे थे ना, तो स्टेरॉइड्स से एकदम तो रिलीफ मिलता है, लेकिन परमानेंट रिलीफ तो हमारा आपको वॉइस रेस्ट से मिलेगा। वॉइस रेस्ट मिलेगा। कल आपने सुबह भी लेक्चर लिया, फिर उसके बाद भी मीटिंग्स करते रहे। मेन तो हमारे वॉइस रेस्ट है।
आज शाम को भी लेक्चर।
हाँ,
कल सुबह भी लेक्चर।
वही मैं देख रहा था है ना। Yes, Maharaj.
We will go back to Delhi.
Yes, Maharaj. Yes, very good, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj. क्योंकि गुरु महाराज चंडीगढ़ में और भी ज़्यादा ठंड है यहाँ से भी। हाँ जी महाराज। ठीक ठीक डिसीजन ले लें महाराज, प्लीज। हाँ जी, क्योंकि वो दोनों ने थोड़ा सा स्टेरॉइड दिया ना, इससे टेम्परेरी रिलीफ मिला। और अभी तो
मेरे काम से मेरा वो हो गया।
हाँ हाँ, यस महाराज, बिल्कुल ठीक है। मैं तो आपको कल ही कहा महाराज, ठीक सोच रहे हो महाराज, प्लीज। क्योंकि और हमारे जितना आप रेस्ट लो गुरु महाराज अपनी मीटिंग्स को।
महाराज तो बोले रेस्ट करने से कुछ नहीं होता है।
नहीं, वॉइस रेस्ट तो रेस्ट है ना, वॉइस रेस्ट नहीं, वो बहुत जरूरी है। नहीं गुरु महाराज, वो जरूरी है। आप देखो किसी के पास भी जाते हैं आप ना, वो किसी भी एंटी स्ट्रेस के पास जाओ, वो कहेंगे वॉइस रेस्ट।
कॉन्फ्रेंस में मिल गया है।
ये जब सुबह लेक्चर दिया था, उसके बाद आप बात करते थे ना, तो सारे दिन मीटिंग्स रही ना, तो बोलना तो पड़ेगा यार। ठीक है हमारे तो बस महाराज, यस महाराज, यस।
Yes, Kumar. Get me Dham page. एक मिनट दो, मैं बस करके ब्लू बॉक्स रेडी कर रहा हूँ।
तो वॉक ठंड है तो फिर वॉक में कैसे जाएंगे? इधर ही कैसे ठंड अगर है तो वॉक में वॉक में कैसे
जाने ही वॉक में तो जब धूप निकलेगी तो
हाँ, कल से ज़्यादा ठंड सुबह रहता है, खाली बस धूप में जाएंगे तो फिर वॉक करेंगे तो आपके लिए अच्छा है।
Kumar, just 2 minutes.
पूजा के बाद करेंगे। पूजा करने के बाद करेंगे।
स्टेशनरी को
ये इधर ही है, मेडिसिन आधे घंटे में फोन करेंगे।
नाम से तो वो ठीक है। Maybe I trick you. Maybe I trick you.
What do you do?
Trick this or not good. Cold after cold. Fire. Try trick you. Has to be working. No. No, I treat after working. After Puja.
ठंड है बाहर।
बहुत ठंडा है।
वाला नहीं है वाला पापा।
पढ़िए किताब
बुक्स है आपके पास?
कौन सी?
बुक्स है आपके पास फोन में?
हाँ सब
कौन सा?
स्टैंड हो गया महाराज। एनी कैंटो I'll read from 3rd canto 25th chapter. The glories of devotional service Guru Maharaj. So the first verse. शौनक उवाच
26 में क्या है?
26th is Guru Maharaj, fundamental principles of material nature. Just the translations of 26th chapter. First verse. The personality of Godhead, Kapil, continued. My dear mother, now I shall describe unto you the different categories of the Absolute Truth, knowing which any person can be released from the influence of the modes of material nature. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, only through devotional service. Bhaktya Mam Abhijanati. As stated in the Bhagavatam, the object of devotional service is Mam, Krishna. And as explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, to understand Krishna means to understand Krishna in his personal form, with his internal energy, his external energy, his expansions and his incarnations. There are many diverse departments of knowledge in understanding Krishna. Sankhya philosophy is specially meant for persons who are conditioned by this material world. It is generally understood by the Parampara system or by disciplic succession to be the science of devotional service. Preliminary studies of devotional service have already been explained. Now the analytical study of devotional service will be explained by the Lord, who says that by such an analytical study, one becomes freed from the modes of material nature. The same assertion is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Tato mam tatvato gyatva. By understanding the Lord according to various categories, one can become eligible to enter into the kingdom of God. This is also explained here. By understanding the science of devotional service in Sankhya philosophy, one can become free from the modes of material nature. The eternal self, after becoming free from the spell of material nature, becomes eligible to enter into the kingdom of God. As long as one has even a slight desire to enjoy or lord it over material nature, there is no chance of his being freed from the influence of nature's material modes. Therefore, one has to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead analytically, as explained by the Sankhya system of philosophy by Lord Kapil Dev. Second verse. Translation. Knowledge is the ultimate perfection of self-realization. I shall explain that knowledge unto you, by which the knots of attachment to the material world are cut. Purport. It is said that by proper understanding of the pure self, or by self-realization, one can be freed from the material attachment. Knowledge leads one to attain the ultimate perfection of life and to see oneself as he is. The Shvetashvatar Upanishad also confirms this. Tam eva viditvati mrityumeti. Simply by understanding one's spiritual position or by seeing oneself as he is, one can be freed from material entanglement. In various ways, the seeing of oneself is described in Vedic literature and it is confirmed in the Bhagavatam. Purushasya Atma Darshana. That one has to see oneself and know what he is. As Kapildev explains to his mother, this seeing can be done by hearing from the proper authoritative sources. Kapildev is the greatest authority because he is the personality of Godhead, and if someone accepts whatever is explained as it is without interpretation, then he can see himself. Lord Chaitanya explained to Sanatana Goswami the real constitutional position of the individual. He said directly that each and every individual soul is eternally a servitor of Krishna. Jeever Swarup hai Krishnair Nityadas. Every individual soul is eternally a servitor. When one is fixed in the understanding that he is part and parcel of the Supreme Soul and that his eternal position is to serve in association with the Supreme Lord, he becomes self-realized. This next verse. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Supreme Soul and he has no beginning. He is transcendental to the material modes of nature and beyond the existence of this material world. He is perceivable everywhere because he is the self-effulgent and by his self-effulgent luster, the entire creation is maintained. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is described as being without beginning. He is Purush, the Supreme Spirit. Purush means person. When we think of a person in our present experience, that person has a beginning. This means that he has taken birth and there is a history from the beginning of his life. But the Lord is particularly mentioned here as Anadi, beginningless. If we examine all persons, we will find that everyone has a beginning. But when we approach a person who has no beginning, he is the Supreme Person. That is the definition given in Brahma Samhita. Ishvara Parama Krishna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Krishna, the Supreme Controller. He is without beginning and he is beginning of everyone. This definition is found in all Vedic literatures. The Lord is described as the soul or spirit. What is the definition of spirit? Spirit is perceivable everywhere. Brahman means great. His greatness is perceived everywhere. And what is that greatness? Consciousness. We have personal experience of consciousness, or it is spread all over the body. In every hair follicle of our body we can feel consciousness. That is individual consciousness. Similarly, there is super consciousness. The example can be given of a small light and the sunlight. The sunlight is perceived everywhere, within the room or in the sky. But the small light is experienced within a specific area. Similarly, our consciousness is perceived within the limit of our particular body. But the super consciousness or the existence of God is perceived everywhere. He is present everywhere by his energy. It is stated in the Vishnu Puran that whatever we find anywhere and everywhere is a distribution of the energy of the Supreme Lord. In Bhagavad Gita also, it is confirmed that the Lord is all pervading and exists everywhere by his two kinds of energy, one spiritual and the other material. Both the spiritual and material energies are spread everywhere, and that is the proof of the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The existence of consciousness everywhere is not temporary. It is without beginning, and because it is without beginning, it is also without end. The theory that consciousness develops at a certain stage of material combination is not accepted herein, for the consciousness which exists everywhere is said to be without beginning. The materialistic or atheistic theory stating that there is no soul, that there is no God, and that consciousness is the result of a combination of matter is not acceptable. Matter is not beginningless, it has a beginning. As this material body has a beginning, The universal body also does. And as our material body has begun on the basis of our soul, the entire gigantic universal body has begun on the basis of the Supreme Soul. The Vedanta Sutra says Janmadhyasya. This entire material exhibition, its creation, growth, its maintenance and its dissolution is an emanation from the Supreme Person. In Bhagavad Gita also the Lord says, I am the beginning, the source of everything. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is described here. He is not a temporary person, nor does he have a beginning. He is without a cause, he is the cause of all causes. Para means transcendental, beyond the creative energy. The Lord is the creator of the creative energy. We can see that there is a creative energy in the material world, but he is not under this energy. He is Prakriti Para, beyond this energy. He is not subjected to the threefold miseries created by the material energy because he is beyond it. The modes of material nature do not touch him. It is explained here. Swayam Jyoti, he is light himself. We are experienced in the material world of one lights being a reflection of another. Just as moonlight is a reflection of the sunlight. Sunlight is also a reflection of the Brahma Jyoti. Similarly, Brahma Jyoti or the spiritual effulgence is a reflection of the body of the Supreme Lord. This is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. Yasya Prabha Prabhavata. The Brahma Jyoti or Brahman effulgence is due to his bodily luster. Therefore, it is said here, Swayam Jyoti. He himself is light. His light is distributed in different ways as the Brahma Jyoti, as sunlight and as moonlight. Bhagavad Gita confirms that in the spiritual world, there is no need of sunlight, moonlight or electricity. The Upanishads also confirm this. Because the bodily luster of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is sufficient to illuminate the spiritual world, there is no need of sunlight, moonlight or any other light or electricity. This self-illumination also contradicts the theory that spirit soul or the spiritual consciousness develops at a certain point in material combination. The term Swayam Jyoti indicates that there is no tinge of anything material or any material reaction. It is confirmed here that the concept of the Lord's all-pervasiveness is due to his illumination everywhere. We have experienced that the sun is situated in one place, but the sunlight is diffused all around for millions and millions of miles. That is our practical experience. Similarly, although the Supreme Light is situated in his personal abode, Vaikuntha or Vrindavan, his light is diffused not only in the spiritual world, but beyond that. In the material world, also, that light is reflected by the sun globe, and the sunlight is reflected by the moon globe. Thus, although he is situated in his own abode, his light is distributed all over the spiritual and material worlds. The Brahma Samhita confirms this. Golok eva nivasatya khilatma bhuta. He is living in Golok, but still he is present all over the creation. He is the super soul of everything and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has innumerable transcendental qualities. It is also concluded that although he is undoubtedly a person, he is not a Purush of this material world. Mayavadi philosophers cannot understand that beyond this material world, there can be a person, therefore they are impersonalists. But it is explained very nicely here that personality of Godhead is beyond material existence. Verse 4. As his pastime, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the greatest of the great, accepted the subtle material energy, which is invested with three material modes of nature, which is related with Vishnu. Purport. In this verse, the word Gun Mayim is very significant. Demi means the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Gun Mayim means invested with three modes of material nature. When the material energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears, this Gun Mayim energy acts as a manifestation of the energies of the three modes. It acts as a covering. The energy emanated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead manifests in two ways: as an emanation from the Supreme Lord and as a covering of the Lord's face. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that because the whole world is illusioned by the three modes of material nature, the common conditioned soul, being covered by such energy, cannot see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The example of a cloud is very nicely given. All of a sudden, there may appear a big cloud in the sky. This cloud is perceived in two ways. To the sun, the cloud is a creation of its energy, but to the ordinary man in the conditioned state, it is a covering to the eyes. Because of the cloud, the sun cannot be seen. It is not that the sun is actually covered by the cloud. Only the vision of the ordinary being is covered. Similarly, although Maya cannot cover the Supreme Lord, who is beyond Maya, the material energy covers the ordinary living entities. Those conditioned souls who are covered are individual living entities, and he from whose energy Maya is created is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In another place in Srimad Bhagavatam, in the first canto, 7th chapter, it is stated that Vyasadeva, by his spiritual vision, saw the Supreme Lord and the material energy standing behind him. This indicates that material energy cannot cover the Lord, just as darkness cannot cover the sun. Darkness can cover a jurisdiction which is very insignificant in comparison to that of the sun. Darkness can cover a small cave, but not the open sky. Similarly, the covering capacity of the material energy is limited and cannot act on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is therefore called Vibhu. As the appearance of a cloud is accepted by the sun, so the appearance of the material energy at a certain interval is accepted by the Lord. Although his material energy is utilized to create the material world, this does not mean that he is covered by that energy. Those who are covered by the material energy are called conditioned souls. The Lord accepts the material energy for his material pastimes in creation, maintenance, and dissolution. But the conditioned soul is covered. He cannot understand that beyond this material energy, there is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the cause of all causes. Just as a less intelligent person cannot understand that beyond the covering of the clouds, there is bright sunshine. Verse 5. Divided into varieties by her threefold modes, material nature creates the forms of the living entities. And the living entities, seeing this, are illusioned by the knowledge covering feature of the illusory energy. Purport. Material energy has the power to cover knowledge, but this covering cannot be applied to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is applicable only to the praja, or those who are born with material bodies. The conditioned souls. The different kinds of living entities vary according to the modes of material nature, as explained in Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literature. In Bhagavad Gita, it is very nicely explained that although the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance are born of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is not subject to them. In other words, the energy emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot act on him. It acts on the conditioned soul, and who are covered by material energy. The Lord is the father of all living entities because he impregnates material energy with the conditioned souls. Therefore, the conditioned souls get bodies created by material energy, whereas the father of material entities is aloof from the three modes. It is stated in the previous verse that the material energy was accepted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in order that he might exhibit pastimes for the living entities who wanted to enjoy and lord it over the material energy. This world was created through the material energy of the Lord for the so-called enjoyment of such living entities. Why this material world was created for the enjoyment of the conditioned souls is a very intricate question. There is a hint in the previous verse in the word Leelaya, which means for the pastimes of the Lord. The Lord wants to rectify the enjoying temperament of the conditioned souls. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that no one is the enjoyer but the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This material energy is therefore created for anyone who pretends to enjoy. An example can be cited here that there is no necessity for the government's creation of a separate police department. But because it is a fact that some of the citizens will not accept the state laws, a department to deal with criminals is necessary. There is no necessity, but at the same time, there is a necessity. Similarly, there was no necessity to create this material world for the sufferings of the conditioned souls. But at the same time, there are certain living entities known as Nityabad, were eternally conditioned. We say that they have been conditioned from time immemorial because no one can trace out when the living entity, the part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, became rebellious against the supremacy of the Supreme Lord. It is a fact that there are two classes of men: those who are obedient to the laws of the Supreme Lord, and those who are atheists or agnostic, who do not accept the existence of God and who want to create their own laws. They want to establish that everyone can create his own laws or his own religious path. Without tracing out the beginning of the existence of these two classes, we can take it for granted that some of the living entities revolted against the laws of the Lord. Such entities are called conditioned souls, or they are conditioned by the three modes of material nature. Therefore, the words Gunair Vichitra are used. In this material world, there are 84 lakh species of life. As spirit souls, they are all transcendental to this material world. Why then do they exhibit themselves in different stages of life? The answer is given here. They are under the spell of the three modes of material nature. Because they were created by the material energy, their bodies are made of the material elements. Covered by the material body, the spiritual identity is lost, and therefore the word Mumuhe is used here, indicating that they have forgotten their own spiritual identity. This forgetfulness of spiritual identity is present in the jiva or souls, which are conditioned, being subject to be covered by the energy of material nature. Gyan Guhya is another word used. Guha means covering. Because the knowledge of the minute conditioned souls is covered, they are exhibited in so many species of life. It is said in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 7th chapter. The living entities are illusioned by the material energy. In the Vedas also, it is said that the eternal living entities are covered by different modes, and that there are three all tricolored, red, white and blue living entities. Red is the representation of the mode of passion, white is the representation of the mode of goodness, and blue is the representation of the mode of ignorance. These modes of material nature belong to the material energy, and therefore the living entities under these different modes of material nature have different kinds of material bodies. Because they are forgetful of their spiritual identities, they think the material bodies to be themselves. To the conditioned soul, me means the material body. This is called moh or bewilderment. It is repeatedly said in Kat Upanishad that Supreme Personality of Godhead is never affected by the influence of material nature. It is rather the conditioned souls of the minute infinitesimal parts and parcels of the Supreme who are affected by the influence of material nature and who appear in different bodies under the material modes. Verse 6. Because of his forgetfulness, the transcendental living entity accepts the influence of material energy as his field of activities, and thus actuated, he wrongly applies the activities to himself. Purport. The forgetful living entity can be compared to a man who is under the influence of a disease and has become mad, or to a man haunted by ghosts and who acts without control and yet thinks himself to be in control. Under the influence of material nature, the conditioned soul becomes absorbed in material consciousness. In this consciousness, whatever is done under the influence of material energy is accepted by the conditioned soul as self-actuated. Actually, the soul in his pure state of existence should be in Krishna consciousness. When a person is not acting in Krishna consciousness, he is understood to be acting in material consciousness. Consciousness cannot be killed, or the symptom of living entity is consciousness. The material consciousness simply has to be purified. One becomes liberated by accepting Krishna or the Supreme Personality of Supreme Lord as Master, and by changing the mode of consciousness from material consciousness to Krishna consciousness. Verse 7. Material consciousness is the cause of one's conditioned life, in which conditions are enforced upon the living entity by the material energy. Although the spirit soul does not do anything and is transcendental to such activities, he is thus affected by conditioned life. Purport. The Mayavadi philosopher who does not differentiate between the Supreme Spirit and the individual spirit says that the conditioned existence of the living entity is his lila or pastime. But the word pastime implies employment in the activities of the Lord. The Mayavadis misuse the word and say that even if the living entity has become a stool-eating hog, he is also enjoying his pastimes. This is a most dangerous interpretation. Actually, the Supreme Lord is the leader and maintainer of all living entities. His pastimes are transcendental to any material activity. Such pastimes of the Lord cannot be dragged to the level of conditioned activities of the living entities. In conditional life, the living entity actually remains as if a captive in the hands of material energy. Whatever the material energy dictates, the conditioned soul does. He has no responsibility. He is simply the witness of the action. But he is forced to act in that way due to his offense in his eternal relationship with Krishna. Lord Krishna therefore says in Bhagavad Gita that his material energy is so forceful that it is insurmountable. But if a living entity simply understands that his constitutional position is to serve Krishna, he tries to act on this principle. Then, however conditioned he may be, the influence of Maya immediately vanishes. This is clearly stated in Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter. Krishna takes charge of anyone who surrenders to him in helplessness, and thus the influence of Maya or conditioned life is removed. The spirit soul is actually Satchidananda, eternal, full of bliss and full of knowledge. Under the clutches of Maya, however, he suffers from conditioned birth, death, disease and old age. One has to be serious to cure this condition of material existence and transfer himself to Krishna consciousness, for thus his long suffering may be mitigated without difficulty. In summary, the suffering of conditioned soul is due to his attachment to material nature, and this attachment should thus be transferred from matter to Krishna. Verse 8. The cause of the conditioned soul's material body and senses, and the senses presiding deities, the demigods, is the material nature. This is understood by learned men. The feelings of happiness and distress of the soul, who is transcendental by nature, are caused by spirit soul himself. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that when the Lord descends to this material world, he comes as a person by his own energy, Atma Maya. He is not forced by any superior energy. He comes by his own will, and this can be called his pastime or Leela. But here it is clearly stated that the conditioned soul is forced to take a certain type of body and senses under the three modes of material nature. That body is not received according to his own choice. In other words, a conditioned soul has no free choice. He has to accept a certain type of body according to his karma. But when there are bodily reactions, as felt in happiness and distress, it is to be understood that the cause is the spirit soul himself. If he so desires, the spirit soul can change this conditioned life of dualities by choosing to serve Krishna. The living entities is the cause of his own suffering, but he can also be the cause of his eternal happiness. When he wants to engage in Krishna consciousness, a suitable body is offered to him by internal potency, the spiritual energy of the Lord. And when he wants to satisfy his senses, a material body is offered. Thus, it is his free choice to accept a spiritual body or a material body. But once the body is accepted, he has to enjoy or suffer the consequences. The Mayavadi philosopher's presentation is that The living entity enjoys his pastimes by accepting the body of a hog. This theory is not acceptable, however, because the word pastime implies voluntary acceptance for enjoyment. Therefore, this interpretation is most misleading. When there is enforced acceptance for suffering, it is not a pastime. The Lord's pastimes and the conditioned living entity's acceptance of karmic reaction. We have covered till verse 8.
नाम प्रेम बोलता
पुरुषावतार को बोला ये. Yes, Guru Maharaj. I got to know. Yes, Guru Maharaj. It's very cold also outside. Yes, Guru Maharaj.
Prem.
Can you
hear me clear? Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
You know, my cough has become very, very bad. All night I was coughing.
My cough has become very bad. Whole night I was coughing.
So, I think I should go back and then I'll come again in the next month.
I think I should go back to Delhi and come again to Chandigarh in next 1 month. Will that be okay?
Whatever you wish, Maharaj, but we have planned all this, everything. Today, Maharaj, we can have no engagements and no home visits and all. You can come and take rest. I think 1 or 2 days it will be recovered. Because
You might take it rest. I'll go to Chandigarh. I should be preaching. But I'll definitely come in the next 2 weeks. I'm very cold and my throat is completely gone.
It is very cold and my throat is completely gone.
okay, Maharaj.
Very sorry.
We'll wait for... No, Maharaj.
My child, very, very cold.
Yes, Maharaj, it's a little cold here. Next month also it will be cooler. It will be better like in April or something.
I'll come this month.
After.
I didn't have this cough. I had it.
Yes. Your voice is not.
There's no point in it. Nobody will come and preach anything. I'm not doing any preaching. Yeah, well,
No issue, Maharaj. No issue.
I think I do what you want to understand. It's all about the main.
Yes, yes. Yeah. They will understand. We will talk. Yes. Your health is our first.
I'm trying to come next month.
Sure, Maharaj. Yes.
It won't be April. It will be this month. Isn't it like I'll go right?
Yes. Please, please.
Okay. We apologize to this.
No, Maharaj. No. Yes, Maharaj. Yes. Thank you.
फोन करना पड़ेगा हाँ ओके खड़ा अतुल कृष्ण वो अतुल कृष्ण वो अतुल प्रभु जी गुरु महाराज बात करना चाहते हैं
हाँ जी गुरु महाराज मैं आऊँ ऊपर आपके पास मैं ये मुझे वहाँ लेके जाते हैं बेस में क्लास के लिए हमारा हाँ जी महाराज और महाराज मैंने उधर डॉक्टर से भी बात की है वो भी ये कह रहे हैं कि आप ले आओ और सीटी स्कैन वगैरह कराओ ये इतने दिनों से चल रहा है तो इसलिए पक्का जाएंगे महाराज मैं बात कर लेता हूँ हाँ जी महाराज
आप किससे बात कर लोगे
नाम प्रेम से
उनको समझा देना
हाँ जी हाँ
जुलाई पहली तो I did you.
आरती कर लीजिए हो गया कर लीजिए
वो उठाएंगे तो मैं देखता हूँ
काट दीजिए अभी कृष्ण प्राप्ति है यहाँ हईते गुरु मुख पद्म गुरु चरण रति श्रीश्रेयोतमगति ये प्रसादे पुरे सर्वासा चक्षुदां विलोके गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनार बंधु लोकनाथ लोकेरा जीवन लोकनाथ लोकेरा जीवन आहा प्रभु दया जब मोरे पद छाया प्रभु कर दया जब मोरे पद छाया एगया सुखी भुवना एगया सुखी भुवना शिला प्रभुपाद पतित पावन जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद प्रभुपाद 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 जय प्रभुपाद नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णापृष्ठाय हरे श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रदायिने निर्विशेषशून्यवादी अष्टदशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसदि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे राम राम हरे हरे ओम गुरुं ब्रह्मा विष्णुं गुरुं सर्वतोमुखं नरसिंहं विष्णुं नित्यं नमाम्यहम् ओम गुरुं ब्रह्मा विष्णुं गुरुं सर्वतोमुखं नरसिंहं विष्णुं नमाम्यहम् ओम गुरुं ब्रह्मा विष्णुं गुरुं सर्वतोमुखं नरसिंहं विष्णुं नित्यं नमाम्यहम् जय नरसिंह जय 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 You want to speak to the queen? Can you all see?